Let's now look at a force couple at the shoulder. Now, most of us think that when we're going to take our arm and simply abduct it to the side, so if my arm's at my side, I'm going to bring it all the way up, we think of the action of the deltoid doing that motion. But if you really think about it, the deltoid muscle comes down, and what it does, it converges and it inserts down here, right? And if you think of its line of pull, it's absolutely vertical, which means if the deltoid did its job by itself, the only thing that would happen is this humeral head would just simply shoot upwards and would butt itself up against this acromion process right there, right? So we know that that's not possible. So in fact, what has to happen is when we want to take our arm and let's move it from 0 all the way up and eventually taking it over top, it has to be a collective action of different muscles taking place. So we know that there's movement of the scapula, but let's just focus on the humeral head. Now, the first thing we have to notice is this is not a ball and socket joint. If you want to think about it, the head of the humerus is probably about 3 times the size of the little cup that it fits into, right? So think of a golf ball on a tee. So really what we have is a very unstable segment. So in fact, what you have is your labrum, which is the cup of the scapula, actually is not a cup like this. It's actually tilted with a little bit of a lift there so the humeral head can rest on it. Then when we look at our rotator cuff muscles, they kind of span over the muscle. So we have the supraspinatus coming over the top, subscap, infraspinatus, and the teres minor. And they kind of almost encapsulate the ball of the socket right here. Now the whole idea here is they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting to make this thing happen. So when we decide to abduct the arm, first 15 degrees of motion that I might have, that you see right here, is actually very little deltoid work. It's more the supraspinatus pulling, because the supraspinatus actually has a slightly different angle, right? It's pulling kind of upward and inward. So it actually helps change the angle of the head. At the same time, if the supraspinatus was working by itself, what would happen is the humeral head would glide upward, and again, it would butt itself under the acromion process. So what actually happens is the other 3 rotator cuffs have a downward and inward pull, fire at the same time, so that this head actually spins on its own rotation while it's changing its angular position. Now, this position of about 15 degrees, give or take, now the deltoid has a different line of pull, because now the deltoid has more of a pull along its line of fibers, and so now the deltoid gets very involved in creating that movement, bringing that humeral head all the way up, right? In a later video, we'll talk about scapular-humeral rhythm, but that's just an example of a force couple, how you've got different timing, different directional pulls, and of course the deltoid pulls a lot harder, being a bigger muscle in the rotator cuffs. You've also got a difference in magnitude.